Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire. I heard a lot of things this week. I've been in church services. I've been with grandchildren. I've been in North Carolina, back to Florida, just all over the place, doing a lot of different things with family, especially. One thing came up in the sermon that it just kind of started my brain running about places I've been and things I'd done. And they were talking about a push mower. All of you have had a push mower and you've had to push into all those things. And it took me back to the Dominican Republic. Now, it took me even farther back than that when I started thinking about the Dominican. I finally got students down there, but about our third or fourth trip, we'd go about every 3 years. I remember being in there and seeing the baseball diamond because it was in a school. We'd go to this particular school. It had a block wall around it because it's a very impoverished area, and they even had to have a guard and stuff because it'd be broken into. And so I remember them having a great baseball field, though. And I don't know who had helped build it for them, but baseball's a big deal in the Dominican Republic. And so I went back that particular year. I don't know how many times we've been already, and I noticed that the ball field was grown up. I mean, it was just nothing but big, giant sawgrass. We inquired about a lawnmower, and they had no lawnmower. I remember going, you know what, let's see if we can pull some money together. How much does a lawnmower cost? And we couldn't afford a big lawnmower, so we had to get a small push lawnmower to mow an entire baseball field. I remember pushing that brand new lawnmower, and some of the students would when I wasn't doing it. We'd also take machetes there and cut some of it down because we're talking, if you know what sawgrass is, it's just thick stuff. And you're talking about an entire baseball field. The diamond was in there. I think there were some donkeys in there that they were trying to eat it, but they were losing. So the grass was so thick and stubborn that it actually blew out the gasket on that new mower. It didn't matter how new the tool was. The condition of the field demanded persistence and patience and effort. We just had to keep going at it. It took us days to get it done. But I remember by about day 3 that this brand new lawnmower just started smoking because the gasket was blown, the oil was getting in the engine, and on it goes. But eventually we were determined, and we got the ball field back as good as it could be. Nothing glamorous about that, just learning responsibility and consistency and how to work with what we had. I remember it took me back to when I was a kid and all we had was a push mower. We had a big yard and it was my responsibility to mow it. And then to make a little money, the church hired me to mow their yard. It was a big yard as well, always with a push mower. Responsibility, the way you saw things, would always come from those small, tough, hard beginnings. But God wants us to use the tools that we're given. He wants us to take those things that we've learned, those experiences of life, and He's going to take them to make us into better people and to do bigger and better things than we thought because we were not too proud to do things that were small and seemingly insignificant. But what I found was that people are watching. They're watching. They're seeing what you do. They're seeing what you stick to. When we use the tools that God gives us, God puts His hands in it. And what seemed small, He ends up adding the increase to. That's a scripture. And we've seen this over and over. I used to laugh about, I think every big project, anything that became a big ministry or whatever, started in either a small house, a small room. I remember many times when computers were getting better and better with editing for movies and for film and things like that, that we started off with a small room with no windows. Till eventually they let us use this massive room because one of the businessmen got in on it with us and started buying computers himself and buying some for himself, buying some for us. And we had a massive room with multiple stations of about, I think, 6 computers, stations where we could edit 6 different programs simultaneously. So what became small became larger. So God has always taken the little things and turned them into great things. So for instance, David was just a shepherd. He's just a shepherd boy. When Samuel anointed him as the future king of Israel. Now, it didn't happen overnight. There was still things that happened down the road, and he was still a shepherd boy. But some tough stuff happened before he became king, but it didn't seem possible to him. It seemed absolutely idiotic to his family. There was Amos, the fig picker. He became one of the prophets of Israel. His book is in the Bible. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, a very obscure town. I was just in Jerusalem a few months ago and in Israel, and we went by Bethlehem and stuff. It's just desert towns, even though they're modern now. It's still just in the desert. And that time they were tiny, 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 and lots of dust, lots of dirt, and lots of heat. And in the wintertime, it was cold. But Jesus was born in Bethlehem, raised as the son of a carpenter, talking about hot work. I was brought up as a builder's son. I think from the age of 5 or 6 on, I was on the job site. Hot work, cold in winter. We broke ice off of the boards because we had deadlines. We built fires, sometimes in the house if it had no roof yet, just so we could stay warm while we were doing woodwork and different things. It was tough work being a carpenter, and God saw it fit to have Jesus' earthly dad as a carpenter. You gain a lot of patience. You gain a lot of skill by doing that. Peter was just a fisherman. Who was he? You know what I mean? You go through the disciples, and Jesus said about John the Baptist. John the Baptist, it was his cousin, and he was the forerunner. Jesus talked about the scriptures, the prophecies that were told about John, and John lived in the wilderness, and he called, and people, hundreds and hundreds of people would come out to be baptized by John because word got around. And he said, there's no greater man on earth. There's never been a greater man on earth than John the Baptist, but the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than him. Small beginnings. John is one of the most famous people in the Bible, and yet he probably owned very little money at all, had disciples. They lived, though, in the desert, and he ate off the land and had a terrible demise at the end of his life, but still the greatest. When we see him in heaven, we're going to see an honored man for who he was and how God used him. How many great people in your life started off humble, overlooked, maybe even underestimated, yet became leaders, creators, world changers? 2 anchor truths are this. 1, faithfulness matters more than size. It's not about how big the assignment is. It's about how faithful you are with what's in your hand right now. Small beginnings often carry the seeds of great purpose. Jay Strack, 2 episodes ago, he talks about his small beginnings. And if you listen to that episode, you'll hear the great works of God that God has been doing through Jay ever since he came to know him. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Luke 16:10. The second point is this: growth takes time and seasons. That field didn't get overgrown overnight. It had been 3 years since we had seen that baseball field when it looked like it was just immaculate and pristine here in the middle of nowhere in the Dominican Republic in a small private school. And it wasn't restored in one pass either. It took days out of our work time there to work on top of the other jobs we had. Life works the same way. God develops us in seasons. There's a time for everything, a time to plant and a time to uproot. If you go back and you read Ecclesiastes 3, you'll see a lot of there's a time for this and a time for that, and some of the things that you're dealing with in life, you'll understand. The big idea is this: don't despise small beginnings. Don't underestimate simple tools that God gives you. Whatever he gives you, use those tools. He will add the increase. and don't rush the process. We tend to rush and push the process. We got to do it now. We got to do it faster than anybody else. We got to do it before somebody else gets to it. We got to get our idea out. But don't rush the process. God already sees the full picture. He already knows what's going to happen. He is going to add the increase and get you where He wants you to be and to go. And He wants you to know that He is to get the credit. God is not looking for perfection. He's looking for availability and faithfulness. When you're talking to students or talking to your children or your grandchildren, you need to help them to understand that it's not about perfection. In fact, John Maxwell says perfectionism is the destroyer of dreams. Rick Warren said this, who's a pastor of one of the largest churches in the world, Saddleback Church. He said, church should be like a laboratory. You're going to fail. He said, for every book we write, we probably have failed 99 times trying to get it right, trying to do things right. But we have such a good track record that our church gives us latitude. And we write the book about the 100th time when we finally got it right. And so we sound like we always get everything right and do things the right way. In reality, we are always experimenting, and 99 times we failed. God is not looking for perfection. He's looking for people that are available and faithful and are willing to put themselves out there and let God do the rescuing and let God point the way. What you're pushing right now, what feels small, overlooked, or even exhausting, that might be the very ground where God is preparing something great. So keep moving forward, stay on your knees, and when you can't get something to change, remember this from the 40-day prayer challenge to make sure that you fast and pray. Fast something. It may not be food. It may be social media. It may be television, TV. It may be whatever it is that is consuming a lot of your time. But what can't be done with just prayer, when prayer seems to not move anything, remember to fast and pray so you can see God move. So don't worry about how small things are right now. Just be faithful. Keep moving forward. God will do what He wants to do. See you next time on Youth Worker on Fire.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.